All right, looks like we're live. This is day 5 of 5 days. Uh, so welcome to the call. Uh, Thank you if you're here live. Thanks if you're watching the replay. Today the topic is visualization. So Power BI, I love it for the fact that it can do what used to be like three different teams, right? There used to be, and I've seen it with my own eyes. It would be one team which would kind of focus on the ETL, kind of build a warehouse, and yeah, one team would do that. Another team would kind of build the model. Another would build the reports. And actually, there was a fourth team. There was a fourth team because this was so big. You needed project managers to manage it. So that was the fourth team. But this lets you do it all, and we have kind of run the spectrum in our 5 days. The query editor, how to connect to the data set, bring it into the model, write some DAX, set up some relationships, and the last part is visualization. So, how's the audio doing? Oh, you can't hear me, can you? Is it? Is nothing working? Why isn't the audio working? Hello? The mic seems active. Is it? Oh, okay. Audio is working. My monitoring system wasn't working. Let's see who's on right now. Brett, hello there. Brijendra is back again. Brijendra Singh's voice is too low. Let me see. Oh, I have the wrong mic again. This should take care of things. I should really speak something. Sorry. One advantage of the voice being low is the coughs aren't as loud. So I woke up this morning. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling better. No cough. That lasted for like a minute. Uh, Linda is on. Javier says hi all the way from Spain. Hola, my friend. Hola. It was funny. So I live in Seattle, Washington, and I really should learn Spanish. It's always been on my list. And I've traveled to Mexico, and I traveled to Mexico City. I guess we're starting with the story. So I traveled to Mexico City, and I was visiting my sister, and she said, "So you're headed to Mexico City? How's it going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm trying to. I've been thinking of learning the language, but I haven't got past hola yet." And oh boy, the laugh so hard. It's like, Avi, you got a long way to go because it's not hola. The edge is kind of silent. It's hola. Anyway, that's my Spanish journey. Oh, talk about Power BI. How about that? So I was saying that what used to take 3 or 4 different teams, one person can do now, and I know it because I did it. I pushed out, well, not intentionally. I mean, I don't want to do that, but the work that I was doing within Microsoft, they at some point realized that the millions of dollars that was being spent on the BI team, that wasn't needed. And yes, the world is a changing. I think it's BI is going to become more pervasive. So I teach a class for kind of unemployed youth, and I talk to them. I say pretty much no matter what your role is, you're going to be interfacing with data. And yeah, and that's good. That's good. The people at the forefront forefront now have the tools they need to get the data they want. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back on visualization. So visualization in one sense is the easy part. So visualization, if you're really struggling creating a visualization, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? You're probably doing 2 things wrong. First thing, you're not focused on your model. Come on, people, that's where it starts. That's the heart of Power BI. So make sure you start with the data model on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, then bring it to life using the query editor. That is your chisel, my friend. Chisel your data. Real data is always messy. Don't just bring it into Power BI desktop and expect to report on it. It does not work that way. So use your chisel that Microsoft has given you and shape your data, make it pretty, make it beautiful. The model is a thing of art, and it's certainly something you want to kind of not litter in there, like keep it clean. So only bring in what you need. So that's your query editor, and then you define your calculation. So if you've done all your heavy lifting, creating visualizations should be a series of mouse clicks. Like click, click. It's like going in a mall and filling your shopping cart. Like, yeah, I want some apples. I want this. I want that. That's what visualization should feel like. So that's number one. If you're finding it hard, that's probably the number one reason. The number two reason is this. There's an idea on Power BI idea site which says, can you add pivot tables to Power BI? And I'm like, what bullshit is that? We already have pivot tables. There are awesome pivot tables in Excel. I love using Excel pivot tables. Why would you want like a poor version of that in Power BI? Because it's never going to be the same. So the second thing, if you're struggling with the visualization, is you're probably putting a square peg in a round hole. Yeah, I think I got that right. So guys, once you have the model, you can use any visualization tool of your choice. You can use Power BI, you can use Excel, heck, you can even use Tableau if you want. Sure, it's a great visualization tool connected to the Power BI model. When I first started working with a Microsoft Finance team, this was in the early years of Power BI, we had the vision that we're going to take all of their Excel reports and convert them into Power BI. What a stupid idea that was. We quickly realized that that's not going to happen, and that was, it was just pointless. So what we ended up with, we had a fancy set of Power BI reports, and they're great. They're lovely. I love them. Interactive, mobile ready. You got all the alerts, quick insights and stuff. Well, we never really used quick insights, but loved kind of the mobile alerts and all that stuff. So that was great. We would use that for monthly meetings. We would use that for meeting with clients, and you just pull up a dashboard and you can answer so many questions right there. That's one thing that I liked about that. You don't walk out of the meetings with like 2,000 action items, because usually what happens is like, oh, I wonder what that's down. Oh, I heard this thing is going on in Singapore. And all of these anecdotal crap that people would throw out, none of that. Now you just click on that and say, oh yeah, that's a launch. We know what's going on. So you don't walk out with that many action items. Really interactive. But then we had the scenario of, I want to find that $1,100 in offset, $1,123 in offset that didn't show through this month that was supposed to. And we had Excel reports for that. Excel reports which would really let you dive into the detail. And if you are an Excel user and you've seen Excel user, I've been one. I've seen Excel users who are far more advanced than me. They fly through Excel. You give them pivot table and they're like, they're like kind of like one of those matrix moves. Yeah, they just really, really quick, and they can find that answer. And you see them in Power BI trying to do the same thing, and they feel a little clumsy. And again, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to subject them to Power BI. Give them both. Okay, so visualization should be easy, but there's one other thing where I do it too. I've done it too, where I see this happening. So let's get rid of this guy. Get this one in. So, holy cow. Okay, good thing I have water right here. Hopefully that would help. So I'm going to use the word dashboard and report interchangeably for this purpose. It doesn't even matter. I don't really care. Power BI uses them as a different terms, but for me, I'm talking about a screen full of data and how you organize it. You're trying to show a screen full of data. And by the way, folks, scrolling doesn't quite count. And I'll tell you why. So scrolling, so Power BI dashboards, they're almost built for scrolling. And please, if you're building a dashboard, don't make it so that they scroll horizontally, vertically, as well as horizontally. Pick one. Decide that it's going to scroll horizontally or it's going to scroll vertically, and just lay it out like that. But for my purpose, I'm just talking about a screen full of data. I think mostly I'm going to focus on reports. Dashboards are a little bit different animal, So this is kind of where was a big turning point or pit stop in my journey. So you remember the early days of Power BI? if you know the early days, Power Pivot started off as Project Gemini. It was so cool. Oh my god, that's when I fell in love with it. And the visuals started off in Power BI, Silverlight based, and nobody talks about it now. Microsoft certainly doesn't. It's like the stepchild they want to forget. It's probably not the right analogy, but yeah, they just don't talk about it. It's I think it's still there in Excel, but it's so well hidden that they don't want you to find it. But that's what was available back then. Of course, Excel is a visualization tool. It's a great visualization tool. But Power BI was there. Power View was there, which is kind of changed into the new modern Power BI visualization in Power BI Desktop. And if you remember the demos from that day, and I don't have this animated, but you would have these flying bubbles demo, and you notice the play icon here, and this was the thing. This was the rage, and they would show this in demos and play, and the bubbles would fly around. And I was so impressed and such a sucker that I thought that was a good idea. So I got a invite for 15 minutes in some kind of a board meeting. This was, I mean, pretty senior level within Microsoft Learning. All the big honchos were there. So Avi Singh gets 15 minutes and he builds together this flying bubble chart. And I get in there and I start showing it, but they keep interrupting me because they just, they're trying to wrap their head around it, and I'm trying to explain that, oh yeah, this is on the x-axis, this is on the y-axis, this is what the size of the bubble means, and this is what happens when I play, and blah and blah. And before I knew it, the 15 minutes were gone. And I never did that again. I never ever did that again. So my friends, I had discovered Stephen Few before that, but this moment really struck home. If you haven't read Stephen Few, this is the book that I read, Information Dashboard Design. You can say that changed my life. And just like other books, Data Warehouse by Kimball, I have told you about that. I have actually never actually read the book. It was taught to me by Greg Weber from Microsoft, but I learned enough to be dangerous. Hey, you know, and Information Dashboard Design, I think I did read the whole thing, but I wouldn't say I apply every single principle, but enough that I think it has helped me. So first thing he talks about, and he shows these examples, and maybe yours are not so extreme, but these are ugly. And sometimes you would find yourself doing these fancy things to make it fancy. A classic example is a 3D one, 3D pie chart. Stop doing that. You know. So Stephen Few talks about this economy of pixel, and I find that so beautiful. And he talks about that every pixel. So it's all about, you know, real estate. You have very limited real estate on the screen. And I'll tell you why scrolling doesn't count in a little bit. So you have limited real estate, so every pixel should matter. Every pixel should be thoughtful. And my friends, when I think about that, I love it, because that's the way I think about the data model. That every model, every relationship should be intentional, it should be thoughtful. That's why I do not like, I was going to say hate, I do not like the auto detect relationships. I think you should turn it off. I think I should turn it off. I usually forget. Because it should be intentional. The same way with your visualization, every pixel should be intentional. Like, what's the meaning of this being colored blue? What's the point of that, right? Things like that. So you should start questioning that. So what I'm going to do is, I have some old Excel examples from mine. Maybe we can review that. The original idea for this call was that I would ask you to submit your dashboards to me, and I would just critique them with my limited ability. I'm not a visualization expert, but my students have told me that I've offered some good feedback. Let's see. I want to make sure I have the chat window up here in case you guys are talking back to me. Okay. So I'll show you my Power BI version, and I'll show you, a little bit of compromise that I've grown. So my layout, and this is my standard layout. This is my go-to layout. This is what I start with. And this one is probably, Stephen Few is going to choke over it. And I'll talk about that later as well. Why that's probably a very bad placement. Very bad. Ooh, bad hobby. But Let's so ignore that. Here, so the sections that I have are high level numbers, a little bit of kind of breakdowns. So breakdowns here, and then trends, and limited amount of detail. And slicers, yeah, I usually push off to the side. You probably heard me before. If you have filters right here, I consider those as for authors or maybe power users. You know, 1 out of 20. You know, folks who can really get into it. But otherwise, if I want my users to interact, filters, change something, I want to make that a slicer. And now, of course, slicer, you have a lot of options where you can have a drop down. So you can, they're pretty, they're not as space heavy, space hungry. I mean, here you can see they're taking a bit of a space, but now you can make them pretty compact. So that's my layout. So again, high level numbers, and I love seeing that right at top, grounds me. Maybe there should be something here about a context of what you're looking at. That would be nice. Like, hey, this is a finance report for FI 2017, and of course that would dynamically update. So high level numbers, and I use the card type for that. Yeah, and these, yeah, I don't think Stephen Few would approve. I don't know. These are too big, I guess, but they pin nicely on dashboard. That's one reason I use that. And then a breakdown in here, and these ones both have drill down, and I have to say I'm not a huge fan of that because of discoverability. So a user interface is beautiful and functional when users can discover things on their own. You don't have to teach them. But drill down, yeah, good luck having somebody discover that just on their own if they have no idea that Power BI has drill down. So it's kind of a miss. So I don't rely on that heavily. I don't expect that users will find it, except maybe power users and so forth. So so I do have drill downs here, but again, they're not very discoverable. It would be so cool if you hovered over it and it just changed and talked to you. You know, did a pop up like, hey, would you like to drill into it? Anyway, so that's the kind of the breakdown, and of course the cross filters. You can click Canada and see Canada and all that stuff. And then I show trends, and this is a trend as a weekday. And another thing which really helps is notice what happened here. That when I clicked Canada, this chart was almost useless, and it's certainly very exaggerated for pie charts. So for that, you can go to Visual Tools, Edit Interactions, and then say, why isn't, yeah, there you go. And then say don't highlight. That's the default. Don't highlight. Instead, filter down. So right here, don't do this highlight. Do the filter down. And now you see that if I click Canada, it doesn't highlight. It just shows me Canada. Australia does the same thing. Sorry, this is of course glorious AdventureWorks data. So all of these graphs look the same, but they're changing. So again, let me switch it back to highlight, and now you can see that now it's highlighting, which in some cases is not what you want. So I like that feature. I love that. A little bit of work, but that's fair. So then you have trends, and then a little bit of detail. Don't go crazy on the detail. So here's one question I got earlier from somebody on this YouTube live or one of my webinars, and they said, I have 50 to 100 columns, 5,000 rows. Can Power BI show that? And I'm like, well, maybe you can, but why, right? So if you find yourself showing a lot of detail, you should ask yourself that, would I make everybody's life easier, mine included, and all the users are using it by connecting Excel to my Power BI model, right? So yeah, so if you find yourself too detail heavy, ask yourself what's going on. So this is my base template. This is pretty much what I start with. And you know what? I'm going to make a note of two things that I need to talk about. So I want to talk about why scrolling isn't a good idea, and I want to talk about why this placement is not the best. Where do you put the logos? So let's go back and so this is Excel screenshots, but let's take the Stephen Few. This is nice and clean. Obviously, this is not using the real estate effectively, so that's a bummer. But yeah, so tones of gray are good. You can see color. I was very conscious about it. I mean, I was very like, when am I going to use color? So I've limited that. That was one. Now let's skip this one. It's not that beautiful. This one I really liked. And one of the key things Stephen Few talks about is that, you know, the indicators, the KPI indicators, whatever, things like that, you know, red, green, blue, traffic lights. I used to do a lot of that. And then Stephen Few talked about, for one, what's the point of showing a green indicator? Don't never ever show a green indicator. Uh, because yeah, you don't want to draw attention to that. It's pointless. So, and once you change that, once you say that, yeah, it's only, I'm only going to highlight kind of red, then you see how clean it looks. Where it says everything is red, yellow, green, red, yellow, green. It's just crazy. And here, and he also talks about kind of color blindness, and it's one of those accessibility kind of things. So if you've heard, well, my source of knowledge, a lot of that comes from TED Talks, but I've seen TED Talks which talk about how accessible design is actually better design. So when they design things considering people who are kind of visually impaired or some other thing, and they come up with a design, that design is also better for everybody else. So he talks about designing for a kind of colorblind people, and there's a significant percentage. And folks, they're never gonna tell you. It's just one of those things. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not kind of embarrassing, but they don't talk about it. They don't mention it, so you're not gonna know. They're not gonna say, but it's real. It's out there. So he talks about designing for that. And one thing that he says is, of course, in the red, yellow, green, you're not going to show green, but even in yellow and green, either you can do shapes, which is okay. I've seen that. So yellow is going to be a different shape, red is going to be a different shape. That's fair. But you can often just simply do it using now I'm not sure what the technical term is. Hue maybe, or intensity. I forget. I mixed them up. But you can see what's going on here. So instead of yellow and green, you can just do a lighter shade and a darker shade, and colorblind people can read it. And in a way, it's more elegant for everybody else as well. So that's a little bit of goodness right there. And look at this chart. It's, and again, copied pretty much right from Stephen Few. But notice what it's doing. It's showing you past data at a higher, at a weekly level. So when you're showing past, you see weekly, but when it comes to the immediate week, now it's showing daily. And that's so cool, right? I mean, it gives you the whole picture, but if imagine if I had daily level in the past as well, it'll be a lot more cluttered. So that one is kind of, well, that's not daily, is it? Is it daily? Uh, it's, I think it's summarized. So maybe I didn't get it right. But the idea is that you can have one graph which is kind of a summary, and if you come to the recent time frame, you get a little more detail. Okay, good. So probably this wasn't that great. So let's talk about the the part about where putting your logo and stuff here is maybe not the best idea. And I know I kind of do that all the time. Maybe something I need to work on. So all placements are not equal. So when somebody is scanning your dashboard, they're gonna go top down, left to right, and then top down. That's the way they scan. And can anybody guess why is that so? And I'm not gonna wait for the answers because there's like a 30-second lag. But if you guessed it, awesome, my friends. And well, you're right. The reason is that for most cultures, we read in that manner, right? We go left to right. Did I say right to left? I meant, I mixed them up, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one in the call. So left to right, that's how we read, and then top down. So that's how we scan the dashboard as well. Now, of course, this could be different in different cultures. So if you have a culture where Arabic or something which is read the opposite way, right to left, then maybe the placement is different. So the most important corners, let's see if I talk about that. We're talking about now. So the most important parts are here. This is super important, and that should be reserved for important stuff, not the logo, as I did. And the other part which is important is the center, but the center only works best if you have something, oops, sorry, and it is offset with a little bit of white space. And that's another thing Stephen Few talks about. A lot of times we do these boxes and all this stuff in color, and a lot of times you can get separation just by having a little bit more white space. Just if you want two things to be feel connected, just put them a little bit closer together, and that's good. That's going to work. You don't need boxes or anything. So these are the two most important positions, and the least important is, of course, this thing in the corner. So ideally, this is the right place for the logo to be placed. Okay, good. What else? All placements are not equal. So that's pretty much all I have for today. This was so good. But maybe some tips. So I haven't read this in a while. So try not to let the customer design. Yeah, that's a very bad idea. Very, very bad idea. So don't let them design. Just ask them what they're looking for. And the first version you should build yourself. I would say try this approach. So forget the logos, move them down to the bottom. But high level detail at the top, then some kind of breakdowns, some trends, and a little bit of detail. Don't go crazy on that. So build the version one yourself and get feedback and iterate. Power BI is agile BI. Don't do what used to happen in the old BI world, which was, oh, we're going to take 6 months and build a Taj Mahal of all BI projects. It's going to have everything. It's going to meet everybody's needs. And of course, it would cost a lot more money than you anticipated. It never finished on time. It actually never finished at all, period. And did not meet anybody's needs. Well, never met 100% of their needs. And that meant everybody went back to Excel. I mean, they would grab some data from the warehouse that was built and then do their own thing in Excel. So all the warehouse would pretty much a data source. And that's why a lot of times you look at IT and the reports they've built, they're not really reports, they're not graphical, they're just a dump of data. Like, yep, because they know that's what their customers ask. Just let me grab the data and so yeah, okay, here's the data. It's got all the fields and everything. So build the V1 yourself and just iterate, just walk with them on that journey. That frankly goes the same with your model and your measures as well. So model, start off with just one data table if you can. I would strongly recommend that. Just one data table and its lookup tables. And for measures, yeah, start small, build some basic ones, and then iterate. Scrolling. Let's talk about that. Push towards action. Oh yeah, so this is good. So scrolling on multi-page. Let's say there's some set of information on this page. Fair enough. And then you go to the next page and you find related information. Now, it turns out that our brain can only hold on to specific pieces of information, and it varies. If it's numbers, it's kind of very few. If it's graphical, we can kind of grab that in one chunk, so it works differently. But still, that it's like the cache. You know how there's the memory and there's cache. Clearly, I'm not equipped to talk about this, but so this is kind of the cache space, and it's limited. It's not like our long-term memory. So when you switch from one screen to the other, either by scrolling or switching to a different page, you've actually not retained, certainly not all of it, actually very limited points of information. What does that mean? Now, of course, this whole exercise is for some human to find some insight, make some connection, right? Have that aha moment. So by splitting it across several screens, you're minimizing the probability of that. So, and yeah, that's not good, right? So if you are able to put everything together, and I'm not saying just cram everything in. It has to look beautiful. It has to be elegant. But so yeah, that's why you have to economize your pixels. You have to make sure exactly what you're doing. But if you can put it on one screen, it's always better. Now, of course, you're going to have multiple pages. You're going to have scrolling dashboards. But still, at least be aware of that and prioritize that. So where you do want them to see connections or be able to see connections, try to put those things on the same screen so that they show on the same screen. Okay, good. So talked about that. And the last one, actionable reports. And this I've felt feels like a journey to me. So when I so I was working with a sales team building reports for them, and we started with something which I consider basic, but of course that was like, woo, kind of a God's gift for them, which was easily being able to compare and slice and dice year over year performance. That's simple in Power BI, and I love those things, the things that are uh, hard in the old world, but really easy in the new world. I don't know why I had trouble saying that, but so I love that. But once they had that, I kind of prodded them a little more. I'm like, well, what do you do with this? I mean, like, yeah, we're down compared to last year. What now? What action do you take? And that leads you on a journey to ask more questions. Say, hey, what if you can see the top customers who are down, maybe by dollar or by percentage or something like that, and have show the information right there, show their phone number or something, and sales agents can just pick up the phone and call. That's a lot more actionable. But again, I felt like you can't force that on your customer, internal or external. You kind of have to walk with them on a journey. If you force feed them too much, they don't. It doesn't work, at least in my experience. One thing that does work best is somehow if you can make it sound like it was their idea. Oh boy, it works lovely. They will lap it up. So hey, hopefully that helped. That's my kind of thing on visualization. But again, visualization should be the easy part. Your focus, 80% of your effort, your hard work should be on building the the model, the clean shape transform, focus on the relationships, and build it. And it's odd. So I would say 80% of the effort goes there, but 80% of the time goes in report, the visuals. Does that sound odd? Well, that's because reports, there's a lot of back and forth, at least in my experience, where you show something to the customer and they use it for a little bit, um, and then come back with feedback. And it takes time. It takes them using it to see, yep, this is working. We love this. We don't love this anymore, something like that. So it takes time. It doesn't take effort. So it's not like you're slaving away all those weeks. You are, you're not doing much at all, in fact. When they ask for a change, you just click a few mouse clicks and, kind of put it in there because most likely it's already in the model. If it's not in the model, you go back and quickly add a measure or something. So 80% of the effort goes in the model. 80% of the time goes in reporting. That's my experience. All right, my friends. So, hey, let me know if you have any questions about this or any other Power BI questions. I would be happy to answer them. I'm not gonna harp about the Learn Power BI course at this point. If you've been following me, you know about it and you've checked it out. I'll just say it's closing tonight, 9 p.m. Pacific. So that's less than 12 hours from now. The last time I opened the course enrollment was in July. So July, August, September, October. And I've obviously kind of considered like, should I do it that way? I will say one thing that I like about this approach is that it lets me really focus on my students. So once I kind of close enrollment, then I'm not worried about any of this stuff. I'm just pretty much 100% focused on my students. So deadline is today. Check it out, learnpowerbi.com. And I'll just hang out a little bit if you have any questions. Otherwise, hope you enjoy the 5 days. I think I'm only going to keep the recording up for a little bit. So if you wanted to catch a replay, do it now. Otherwise, the plan is to go ahead and kind of archive that inside the class area. Now, most of the topics I covered here, pretty much all of it is already inside the course, but still, I'll make it available inside the course area. And hey, I wish you guys the best in your Power BI journey. And we'll keep doing our YouTube Fridays. Not every Friday. I'm still trying to see how that works out. So hang out with me over there. Of course, if you join the course, I would love to see you inside. And well, you know about it by now. We have the weekly Q&A and everything, so I get to hang out with my students on Thursdays. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions. If you have any questions, if you go to the enroll page at the very end, you have my email, and you also have this option to just book a call with me, and I've spoken to a few folks in yesterday and today, So just 15-minute call, and you know what? There's no obligation. I'm not gonna beat up on you if you don't buy my course. And really, some people called and said, Avi, I'm not gonna buy your course, but I had a Power BI question, and you know what? I'm happy to answer that. So if you're yeah, if you want to talk to me about the course or Power BI, I'm available all day today till 9 p.m. and just set up a call. I'll stick that link over here in the window as well. All right, my friends, I'm going to sign off. But yeah, as always, power on. Take care.